Well, we got an interesting one to start this season of season previews, and yes, we are doing it earlier than most channels. We are doing it than I have done in the past. The last couple of years, I have not been able to complete all 68 Power 4 teams. Time constraints kind of got in my way, and some complacency. With starting this early, it's going to ensure that we're going to get there. I set an order for each conference, and we're going to start with the ACC with North Carolina. It's Bill Belichick's second year. How is this team going to progress? But if you are new around here, my name is Colin Bashnagel. You can find me over here on TikTok if you look up Bash the CFB Show, or just look up my name, Colin Bashnagel. That's all you got to do over there. And make sure you like the video if you like the video, and subscribe as we dive more into all 68 Power Conference teams and talk about noticeable headlines and big headlines within the sport with specific teams. We did a video on Ohio State spring wrap-up earlier. Tomorrow you can expect another team's spring wrap-up to pop up. So I am super excited to get started with all of this stuff as we transition fully into the 2026 season. Let's talk about North Carolina a little bit. Year one for Bill Belichick was a disaster. You had Gio Lopez go and transfer to Wake Forest after really not a good year with North Carolina for him. Definitely a disappointing time for him. A guy that a lot of people, including myself, thought had a lot of potential to be a really good player at this level, and he didn't show it. And part of that was circumstance, but a huge part of that too was just the dysfunction of the team in general. And that's the thing, that when you're looking at last year, there was a lot of inconsistency on both sides of the ball. Had really good receiver play at times, but sometimes they would disappear. The quarterback play was a big concern. That was the biggest concern for this offense, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they turn the page. 4-8 was never the expectation when they hired Bill Belichick. They're expecting year two to be better. And when you look at this upcoming roster for North Carolina, you're looking at them hitting the portal a little bit to patch some things, but they also kept some of the pieces that they liked. The portal was used for the quarterback position, and you got to assume that Billy Edwards Jr., coming in from Wisconsin, before that he was at Maryland, is going to be the guy. Now, at Maryland, he was pretty solid. He was pretty solid as a young player at Maryland, safe to say, but at Wisconsin, he didn't really get a chance to show what he could do, and nor was he in a very friendly situation over there at Wisconsin. But the injury got him early, and he hardly played last year, so we're going to see how this fit works in this new Bobby Petrino offense. And this offense, with him coming in, should really take off. You got a couple of running backs you can count on. Demon June and comes back, and Benjamin Hall as well, the Michigan transfer. Former Michigan transfer is also back. And then you have Jordan Shipp back. You have Leacock back. And you brought in Trachke Kahuna, who I'm really high on, a wide receiver transfer who came in from Wisconsin with Billy Edwards Jr. Now, the offensive line is also looking like it's going to be pretty solid on the left side and piecing together things on the right side with some transfers. But you can stamp it that Hall and Banfield on the left side and Christo Kelly coming back as a starting center. That's going to be big time for North Carolina on offense to try to build some momentum and really get that run game going early on. So you need June and Hall to be a really good, effective 1-2 punch behind an offensive line that should really elevate and be much better. On the defensive side of the ball, I really like a duo at edge rusher that they have. You got to start with the transfer Hoylett coming in from Richmond. He's going to be really solid. And then I also like Melkart Abu Jowdy. I believe I said that right. 10.5 sacks last year. Really pops on film. Super athletic, a disruptive player, always in the backfield. Had, I believe it was 12.5 tackles for loss in 2025. He's going to be really exciting to see. Now, two new linebackers kind of had to fix that and patch that up with Sealman and McDonald coming in as transfers. We'll see how that goes for them. And Ade Willie is the major corner add from Michigan State in that back end to kind of really piece together a secondary that is coming back, returning, should elevate, should get better with Steve Belichick in year two. I'm going to be very interested in seeing this. The only thing that I'm going to be weary of is, do we see a little bit more of a quarterback battle than what people expect over at North Carolina? That is still yet to be determined, and that's going to be maybe a common theme with some of these earlier previews that we do, and teams we're going to have to revisit and talk about again when we do the full conference standings breakdown. These records are not necessarily meant to be set in stone per se, as far as I'm never going to change it, but this is the record I have for now. And until I get some big major changes with these teams, I'm not expecting for that to change. So here we go with the schedule. You can take a look at this schedule. They start with week 0. They're going to be in Dublin, Ireland, playing against TCU. They played TCU at home last year. They get in the conference play week 3 with a road trip to Clemson. We'll see how Clemson is this year. And Notre Dame's pretty early in the season as well. They get 2 bye weeks before Notre Dame. They get a bye week leading up directly to Notre Dame coming into town. Maybe they can push them. Maybe they can give them a little bit of trouble. A back-to-back road trip with Pittsburgh and Duke. Obviously, Mason Heinschel coming back for Pitt, but Duke replacing a good bit, needing to kind of retool over there. We'll see what that project looks like. Then they get back-to-back home games. Syracuse at home, and then Miami, Florida is also at home. Another big team that they get to come down to Chapel Hill, a team that you expect to compete at the top of the ACC this year. At UConn, a little weird off the radar non-conference game in the beginning of November, and then they get Louisville at home, who is again another team who should be at the top. Virginia, who could be a sleeper team in the conference, and then NC State, who's going to be a very interesting team to watch for this year. So let's get into the schedule predictions. This TCU game, it was a blowout last year in Chapel Hill, or as some people call it, Chapel Bill. And now they're playing this game in Dublin, Ireland, but you could kind of see that maybe TCU has a little bit of regression. This is going to be Jaden Craig's first start at the FBS level. It's going to be very interesting for TCU. But I do trust what TCU has a lot more than North Carolina, especially week 0. Going over to Dublin, Ireland, a lot more continuity. I'm going to trust that TCU is going to be able to pick up that win, starting with a loss for North Carolina. Then you get East Tennessee State. East Tennessee State, easy win, should not be a problem whatsoever. They're going to walk through that game. At Clemson, going to be interesting, the post-K Klubnik era, and it really did not go that well with Klubnik. Their offensive line needs to get better. That's safe to say. I don't know if they did enough in the offseason, but with that being said, they're still much more talented than North Carolina, and there is still a decent amount of continuity, and North Carolina still early in the season could be working through some stuff. I'm going to take Clemson in that one. Off of the bye, Notre Dame, national championship contender, going to have a chip on their shoulder from missing the playoff outright last year when they finished the season on a 10-game win streak. I don't expect them to lose at North Carolina in early October there, even off of a bye for the Tar Heels. So it's a 1-3 start, not very good, and it doesn't get any better. I still think Pittsburgh's in a very good situation. They retain Cade Bell as the offensive coordinator. Mason Heinschel going into his second year after showing promise as a true freshman. I don't see North Carolina getting that win either. So they're going to start out 1-4 with a pretty top-heavy schedule, though. But there are some tough games in the back part of that schedule, too. Duke is going to be interesting. They were slightly better than I expected them to be last year, but not by a ton. It just worked out for them that they were successful within conference play. This upcoming year, though, I do think North Carolina is going to get that dub. I think this is really about the time of year that if you see them turn a corner, maybe Bill Belichick's on the hot seat, they're going to start to turn the corner here, and they're going to also be able to beat Syracuse, who, again, is going to be in kind of like a transition mode almost. They had a great year 1 with Fran Brown, disastrous year 2, and now Fran Brown's kind of building it from the start. And I think this is like a 2-year thing for Syracuse, so they're not going to be quite ready, in my opinion, this year. Miami's going to be a tough out, though. And Miami's offense could be even better than it was a year ago. They bring back Mark Fletcher. They're still going to have a great offensive line. They're better at receiver. They're better at quarterback. Their defense might take a little step back, but I still think Miami's one of the best teams in America. I am taking the Hurricanes to get the dub in Chapel Hill. On the road at UConn. UConn last year, this game would have scared me. I'm not as high on UConn this upcoming year. Losing Jim Mora like they did, big deal. I'm going to take a win here for North Carolina. Louisville, very interesting. I am very high on Louisville here. Lincoln Keenholz is going to be the key to that. We don't really know how good he's going to be, but he's going to have really good receivers. He's going to have Isaac Brown at running back and a couple of pretty good running backs. That's what they're going to have. And their defense, ever since struggling a couple years ago, they've gotten just progressively better and better, and I expect for them to be better. But this is a big trap spot on the road for Louisville, and I do believe that there is a team at the top that North Carolina could clip. I think that team is as Louisville. I think they pull off the upset, beat Louisville. A little bit controversial there. I don't think a lot of people will agree with it, but you got to pick some upsets. A team like Louisville is going to lose to a team they're not supposed to lose to. At Virginia, late in the year, I am pretty high on Virginia still. I think a lot of people are going to sleep on the ACC runner-ups, a team that was basically one overtime away from the college football playoff last year. I think that Tony Elliott's building something nice. Bo Pribula coming in at quarterback. I'm taking the Hoos to win in Scott Stadium there. Then closing it out with a rivalry game that means everything for North Carolina. They will go to a bowl game if they win, potentially save Bill Belichick's job if they win, and I think that they do that. Look, this NC State team, very confusing to me, for sure. I'm not, no doubt about it. I'm very mixed about how I feel about NC State right now, but I think North Carolina is going to get progressively better and better as the season goes along, and I do believe that North Carolina finishes the season at 6-6, and 4-4 within the conference, which you can't be mad at if you're a North Carolina fan. If you could see things trending in the right direction going into year 3 under Bill Belichick, being a more attractive destination for transfers going into 27, that's the whole goal for North Carolina this upcoming season. But with that being said, that closes it out for the schedule preview and predictions for North Carolina. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video.